I've been coding for nearly 10 years. And let me tell you that I've made tons of mistakes and wasted countless hours working on the wrong skills. Please don't make the same mistakes as me. Back 10 years ago, when I started coding, I spent nearly 2 years learning HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, just to find out that I hated web development and didn't want to continue doing that. Next, I learned PHP. Yes, you heard that right. For some reason, I learned PHP. Then I decided to learn C# because some random person that I met said that that was the best programming language to learn. The point is that I didn't have a plan, I didn't have a goal, and I had no idea what I was doing, why I was learning what I was learning, and this led to literally years of my life being spent doing something that was pretty useless to me, that was not something that I wanted to pursue. The point is that I didn't have a goal in mind for what I wanted to do, and I definitely didn't have a plan. I was pretty much just a lone kid, sitting in my room, aimlessly watching YouTube tutorials, having no idea what I was going to do with what I learned. What I wish I knew back then was that I should have spent some more time defining my programming goals, coming up with some kind of plan, and having a direction and vision for where I wanted to go with this programming journey. The key takeaway for me is that I should have spent a bit of time messing around in some different languages, looking really to see what was out there, and determining what I liked before I just put my head down and started learning a bunch of skills that now today I really don't use, and that in hindsight was a fairly large waste of time. Now, to continue my story, after a few years of pretty slow progress and learning, I finally found a language and niche that actually interested me. Now, this was building games in Python. At this point, I was still a very amateur programmer, but I had the basics of a few languages under my belt, and I was finally creating some actually interesting projects and things that I enjoyed working on. Now, every time I built a new game in Python, my code got slowly better and better, and I eventually started creating some really cool projects and building some confidence in programming. The issue here was I was doing pretty much all of this on my own. I had no mentor, I had no support network, I didn't really have anyone to talk about programming with, and I definitely didn't have anyone to give me any advice, tips, or guidance for what I should do next. Now, really what this meant is that I just kept making games in Python for about 2 years. I kind of got stagnant in my journey and my learning, and I didn't really learn anything new. I just got really good at Python and making games, and in hindsight, that was a bit of a mistake. Now, what I wish I had done back then is gone out of my way to find some kind of community, group of friends, or mentor, and start making connections in the programming space more seriously. I think if I had done this, I would have rapidly increased the speed at which I learned different programming languages or was kind of aware of different things in the industry. Not to mention, if I had people to ask for advice, tips, or help, I think that just really would have propelled me forward and allowed me to get past just making games in Python a lot faster. Now, fortunately for you, if you're watching this video, you don't need to make the same mistake as me. I'd encourage you to go out there, find some kind of community. For example, you could join my Discord server, or you could check out the sponsor of this video. Formation is the sponsor of today's video and is here to help you find a programming mentor and land a software engineering job. Formation has a top-tier team of engineers from Meta and Nextdoor who have interviewed thousands of candidates and trained hundreds of interviewers during their tenure. This insight is what allows Formation to create better and more effective ways to prepare you for working at FANG-level companies. Formation helps engineers gain confidence, build a foundation for success, prepare for interviews, and much more. Fellows at Formation receive mentorship, one-on-one support, unlimited mock interviews, and unlimited assistance until they have an offer letter in hand. On average, fellows that completed the program last year saw an increase in compensation of over $96,000. Now, the best part of all of this is that you can apply for the program for free by clicking the link in the description, and whether or not you're accepted, you're still going to gain invaluable career advice and insight through their assessment and free interview tip guide, which is a great resource for helping you land your dream job at a FANG company. Don't forget to apply for free from the link in the description to become a fellow at Formation and land your dream software engineering job. Thanks again to Formation for sponsoring this video. Now, after spending most of my high school career looking at Python and making games in Python, I went off to university where I studied computer science. Now, in university, I took all kinds of courses, obviously math courses, computer architecture, data structures and algorithms, but I also took a few programming courses where I learned Python, Java, Go, OCaml, SQL if you consider that a programming language, and a bunch of other programming languages as well. Now, during this time, I was essentially forced to learn all kinds of different programming languages and to constantly adapt to different technologies, frameworks, or whatever it was we were learning in class. Now, even though I wouldn't say this was the most enjoyable time in my life, this is really where I built the strong programming foundation that I have today and built the confidence to feel like I could write code in any language, any framework, and really learn anything that I needed to. So really, I wish that I had done this earlier in my journey, that I had stepped outside of my comfort zone, looked at different languages, technologies, and frameworks, and just played with a bunch of stuff to build that confidence and learn a bunch of new things. Really, when you stick with what you're comfortable with, you're not learning as much as if you dive into a project that you never thought you could complete before. So I would encourage any of you to step outside your comfort zone, pick some kind of project that you never imagined you'd be able to create, and then go out there and build it. You might not complete it, it might seem daunting, but I promise you that working on something that seems really challenging or difficult really is the best way to get better, and that's what I wish I had started doing earlier in my career. Now, any of you that have been here for a while will remember that I started taking this YouTube channel seriously as I was in university. Now, what I did was post hundreds of videos on different programming languages, topics, modules, frameworks, whatever you could imagine, and this is really what leveled me up to the next step in my programming journey, where I was having to learn all of these new different topics and not only learn them, but be able to explain them to people on YouTube. So as I continued to post YouTube videos, I realized quite quickly that although raw programming skill was pretty important, so was the ability to communicate, to explain, to break down a topic clearly, and to make someone understand it. And this was a skill that I started developing that I realized many other people, especially in university or in computer science, weren't even really considering and definitely weren't taking too seriously. So as I started to develop and improve my communication skills, I saw the benefits of this immediately, where all of a sudden I started standing out in lectures, groups, etc. And even though I wasn't necessarily the best programmer, if I could be one of the best speakers, a lot of people gave me more attention or just assumed that I was good at programming. Now, this skill is what eventually led me to actually land a job at Microsoft and to get offers from companies like Shopify while I was applying for internships when I was only 19 years old. Now, I don't say any of this to brag, but just to drive the point home that I really wish I had focused more on communication skills earlier in my career, earlier in my journey, because a lot of the opportunities I have today came up because of my ability to communicate. I'd even go as far as to say that communication skills have carried me much further than my programming ability, and even though I've never been the best programmer in the room, I could make up for it by being charismatic, easy to understand and talk to, and able to kind of break down my thoughts and articulate my thought process, which is something that I see a lot of programmers really struggle with. So hopefully you take this point to heart and you too start working on your communication skills as well as your programming skills. So my next point to share with you has to do with my experience working at Microsoft back in 2020 as a software engineering intern. As I joined this role, I was very quickly thrown into the world of software engineering and had my first experience actually working in a team environment. Now, this meant I very quickly had to learn Git, testing, and other tools and kind of procedures in the software development lifecycle. Now, as I completed my 3 months at Microsoft, I did learn a lot of technical skills, I got some great experience and met some great people, and I had a fantastic mentor who was one of the top software engineers on our team and really in our organization, who shared a lot of great information with me and kind of inspired me to level up and see what was possible if I continued with programming. Now, at the same time that there was some really great software engineers who were just really talented and kind of motivational to me, there was a lot of people that was working at Microsoft that didn't strike me as the best engineers, that in fact didn't really do very much and kind of just played the corporate culture game. And that's what this point is about. When I worked at Microsoft, I got exposed to this kind of large company corporate culture at like a FANG, tech company, and I realized that quite a few people that were working there didn't really do that much. They did the bare minimum to get by, they weren't the best software engineers in the world, and they simply were good enough to pass their interviews, they had kind of the communication skills to get by, and really to fake it until they made it. So the point here is that a lot of people that are working at these companies are not as good as you might think they are. They're not these idols or amazing software engineers that you might imagine, and they're definitely not any better than you might be. And that's kind of one thing that I realized when I stepped in, that I didn't need to have this imposter syndrome, that I wasn't necessarily going to be worse than other people there, and that most people in tech and most people in life in general don't really know what they're doing. They just kind of have that confidence and arrogance that makes people believe that they do. So the key takeaway I took from this experience is that people are not necessarily as good as you might make them out to be. They're not these pro-level software engineers that just know absolutely everything. A lot of them are figuring it out day by day, just like you are, and that's a reason why you shouldn't feel like you can never be on their level. I know a lot of you watch this channel and maybe even compare yourself to someone like me, and you say, oh, I'm never going to be there, or I'm not as good as you. The reality is a lot of times people are kind of self-imposing their own restrictions. They're defining what they're capable of, and I think if you set your bar a little bit higher, look a little bit further, and just realize that not everyone's kind of as amazing as you might make them out to be, that you're going to get a lot further. So hopefully you get the message that I'm trying to send here, which is that most people really are not experts. They're not complete professionals. They don't know exactly what they're doing. They're figuring it out day by day, and they've simply had the confidence to say, you know what? I don't know what this is, but I'm going to go in there and I'm going to figure it out, and I think you should have that as well. I know it's difficult to get over imposter syndrome, but trust me, people are not as great or as much better as you might think, and you can definitely reach their level if you put in the effort and the work. So to end this video, the last thing I'll say is that there's no one way to become a software engineer or a developer. Everyone's journey is different. Some people do it in a few months, some people it takes years, and you saw in this video that I had a very unconventional journey where I started learning how to code when I was quite young, and I spent almost 5 years kind of just doing random coding stuff with no real direction or vision, and still I ended up where I am today. So please don't worry if you feel like you're behind people or you're not at the same level as someone else. Everyone goes at a different pace, and as long as you keep going, you will eventually get to where you want to go. So I'd love to hear from you. Was this video helpful? Do you have any tips or things that you wish you knew before you started learning how to code? If that's the case, please leave them in the comments down below. And if you're looking for programming mentors, then again, make sure to check out the sponsor of this video. Don't forget to apply for free from the link in the description to become a fellow at Formation and land your dream software engineering job. Thanks again to Formation for sponsoring this video.